We need to talk about the rivalry between Tua Tagovailoa and Justin Herbert. I mean, actually, we don't because it's not a rivalry and it never will be a rivalry. But for some reason, people got tricked into engaging in something that had no business even being a debate at all. So here we are. The only thing that Tua and Justin Herbert have in common, besides the position that they play, is that if I had to name two quarterbacks that were more shy about the media, were more humble, that didn't even want this rivalry even talked about, it's them. Both of these dudes are humble, hardworking, and embrace the challenge before them without any prima donna tendencies. And if anything, they could actually use a bit more ego. Maybe then Herbert would protect his rib cage and Tua would protect his medulla oblongata instead of putting their health at risk for the benefit of their teammates and fans that root for them. But for some reason, we have been roped into this absolute silliness about comparing their skill sets and their production. Are you actually kidding me? One of these things is not like the other. I get that sports debates are subjective, and statistics go a long way to scaffold and support an argument that you're presenting in one of those debates. But for the most part, a person makes up their mind and then they find the numbers and statistics to back up their claim. But that's only a process people go through when there's a debate worth having, or at least it used to be. If you were walking down a busy street and saw a man holding up a sign that said Tom Brady or Peyton Manning, you might actually stop and give the question some energy because it's worth it. But if that man held up a sign that said puppies or tax audits, you don't even need to add your voice to that. It don't make no sense. And it's not anybody's fault that Tua got drafted before Herbert in the draft. He had some training wheels on him in Eugene, and people couldn't really see it because despite everything else, you knew that he was created in the same quarterback lab that created Josh Allen in the 2020 draft. And Allen at that point in time hadn't finished evolving to his highest form, and now we see what both of these dudes are. And to even become the sixth pick in the draft, Herbert had to outshine his initial three-star ranking at Sheldon High School while also languishing in Larry Scott's inaccessible television network. And Tua, he was always that dude, though. ESPN and Rivals had him as a top 60 prospect, and 24/7 had him as a five-star, which is, if you're not familiar with rankings, means that you're expected to be drafted in the NFL draft in the first round. And Nick Saban clearly thought that he was worthy of a spot on the championship roster, even to come in for their longtime starter and winning quarterback, Jalen Hurts. But none of these men is 6'6, 240, and has Michael Vick's arm and Rob Gronkowski's athleticism, and was drafted with the full understanding that these tools had yet to be tapped into their fullest extent. And all Herbert has done since landing with the Chargers is save the entire franchise from drowning in irrelevance that moving out of San Diego created. Now, meanwhile, the owner of the Miami Dolphins, Stephen Ross, has his entire franchise sanctioned over trying to get rid of Tua for everybody from Deshaun Watson to Tom Brady. And Tua is a very good quarterback, but not good enough to have that man that signs his paychecks convinced that he's the future. Now, do you understand how concerning that is? It's pretty clear that Arizona Cardinals owner Mike Bidwell might actually hate Kyler Murray and vice versa. But even as dysfunctional as that relationship is, there is no denying that Kyler Murray is the future of that franchise. And Herbert and Tua's skill sets and their place with both of their own franchises and as the future of the NFL aren't even in the same neighborhood. One guy is generational and one guy is a good player. We're talking about comparing Giannis and Jeremy Grant. And the worst part of engaging in this conversation is it steals the joy from Dolphins fans who should be able to enjoy actually being competitive in the AFC East for the first time in decades, instead of having to mount up and defend a point that they don't even believe. Imagine being a Dolphins fan Sunday night when Justin Herbert and the Chargers had a two-score lead in the fourth quarter, and Herbert had thrown for more yards against your defense this year than anybody outside of Josh Allen. Imagine sitting there knowing that your franchise quarterback, who had been artificially inserted in a debate that he wanted no part of, was simultaneously putting together the worst game of his career. Instead of just taking the L and moving on to next week, you're having to consider whether to delete all your social media apps off your phone to mentally deconstruct your own understanding of both facts and truth so you can engage in living in an obvious lie without causing permanent brain damage. Sunday night should be the end of a conversation that should have never started. But in the hot take economy, anything can happen. And if Justin Herbert versus Tua can heat up these internet streets, anything can. Guard your hearts and minds, folks, because if not, you might find yourself skipping dinner with a family to write 10 paragraphs about why Jalen Hurts is better than Davis Mills. It's obvious. When a thing is true, it should be able to speak for itself. Let that sink in.